We have just had this from the Qatari Ministry of Defence. It reserves the right, they say, to respond directly in accordance with international law. But, they say, we are assured that Qatari air defences thwarted the attack and successfully intercepted the Iranian missiles. The Ministry of Defence added, thanks to God, the vigilance of our armed forces and the precautionary measures taken, the incident did not result in any deaths or injuries. The country's airspace and territory are safe. Back to Isabel Oakeshott. I get what you're saying there in the Middle East. I think a lot of people, I think that the difficulty in broadcasting when these things are on, and I remember 9/11 being dragged in and I did 11 straight hours, and you just have to be honest about it. And I think a lot of people you can talk to say, met a guy yesterday who said, I really worry about the future of this world for my children, but you have to crack on, don't you? There's no doubt there is a difference between right and wrong, and somewhere along the line, people like the mad mullahs had to be dealt with. I think that's a perfectly justifiable comment, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've literally chosen to bring my children to live in the Middle East, in the heart of this troubled region. And of course, you know, I worry about all sorts of things here. But I think it's still fairly clear who the good and bad guys are, if I can reduce it to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the good guys are definitely not the Ayatollahs of Iran. And I think we need to be grateful that the Israelis have led the way on this. You know, Israel has had such an absolute, you know, kind of public relations beating for the last however long it's been. And yet here they are, basically leading the way with the Americans on doing the entire Middle East, hopefully, a pretty big favour in weakening this regime. You know, their actions have already massively weakened both Hamas and Hezbollah, and things are changing. And this is profound stuff.
I have to say, thank you, Stavros. The airbase in Qatar is pronounced Al Udeid. Just to give you some bit of information about Al Udeid, it's the US CENTCOM's HQ, and British military personnel also serve there on rotation. What's been interesting, and Sean Bell made this point, this has been confirmed, many planes have been moved in recent weeks. Satellite imagery shows it comes after Iran's armed forces threatened to respond. So maybe, I mean, I go back to what I said before the break. Of course it's a powder keg and nobody knows what's going to happen. Donald Trump said, if you respond, you're in trouble. There are parts of the MAGDA movement, the Republican Party and American, some of the public who think that he was wrong to do what he did. There's many people across the world who will say, thank you, you were right. There will always be people against that sort of thing. I think the best that we can hope for with this is that the Iranian Ayatollah mullahs can say, we've responded, we've hit that base, and the Americans can say, really, there was no injuries, no casualties, let's sit down. But in all of this, we've got pathetic Keir Starmer standing there going, let's all sit round the negotiating table. I was brought up to believe that you don't negotiate with terrorists, but I could be wide of the mark. I wanted to ask you about the other big news story today, because this is guaranteed to send you to the roof, although you're in the Middle East. On Friday, and I was put absolutely straight by Sean Bell on this, the group, the Palestine Action group, broke into Brize Norton and poured paint into the engines of 2 RAF Voyager planes. They only got 14. We'd called it vandalism all day on Talk, understandably. Sean came on and said, no, it's sabotage, and sabotage is terrorism, and these people should have been rounded up. Mind you, while you're in the Middle East, 500 of them are in Trafalgar Square, and the police are going, please move along. The far-right people, who I don't condone, and actually people who weren't far-right, were herded, arrested, tried and thrown in jail within 5 minutes. It's absolutely dual standards and appalling. Your thoughts, Isabel Oakeshott?
Well, my thoughts is that anyone who breaks into a UK military base, and RAF Brize Norton is that, actually live really near Brize Norton when I'm at home in the Cotswolds. Anyone who does that is committing a very serious offence.
Yes,
I mean,
you get shot in another country, you would get shot. You would.
Exactly that. You don't get to break into military bases. It's hard to think of any country outside the lily-livered West that wouldn't shoot on sight to a bunch of clowns breaking into a military base. Who knows what they might be planning? And as for the damage that they will have done those aircraft, I mean, the cost of repairing that will be absolutely astronomical. I mean, I haven't seen any expert sort of technical analysis of what's involved in clearing up the mess. But I mean, for me, this is very definitely custodial sentence territory, and quite significant custodial sentences at that.
Just very quickly, this is an interesting question. You're our international editor. Don't scowl at me. Talk. Does this missile attack count as a strike against NATO?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I mean, you could argue, excuse me, that it is on the basis that I outlined before, that US bases are effectively like bits of US territory. I don't think on the basis of one mercifully thwarted attack, the US is going to go calling Article 5, which is the bit of the NATO agreement in which an attack on one is an attack on all. I mean, Article 5 is, there have not been that many occasions on which it's used, and it's notoriously difficult to get everybody to agree. So I don't think that's going to be happening now. I think it would have to be something altogether bigger, more dramatic, and much more causing fatalities for us to be in any way in the territory of talking about Article 5.
OK, so just for people tuning in right now, 6:30, we reported about an hour ago that Iran had fired 6 missiles at the US Al Udeid air base in the Middle East, in Qatar. In the last few minutes, Qatar had said, and I quote, Qatari air defences thwarted the attack and successfully intercepted the Iranian missiles. Thanks to God, the vigilance of the armed forces and the precautionary measures taken, the incident did not result in any deaths or any injuries. The country's airspace and territory are safe, the ministry said.